morning and welcome everyone. Whether you're here with us in person today, joining us online, hello Zoomers, or maybe watching later on YouTube. Welcome whoever you are and however you are feeling today, whatever you carry in your heart and bring with you, cares, concerns, or celebrations, sadnesses or joys, you are all welcome. Welcome. However we join in, each one of us is part of our community, contributing by being connected in spirit, and all are equally valued. We will begin, as is our custom, by lighting our chalice as a symbol of our free religious faith. And if you're at home and have a candle, you may like to light it now. Some words for the chalice lighting by the Reverend Audrey Vincent. We light this chalice this morning for Earth, our home. Earth, abundant source of what was before we were and will be after we are gone. As each cell proves our common destiny, may we know Earth, our mother of old, as our friend. As we were bred of dust and stars, may we know her fate as ours. Blessed are our bonds to the earth. Blessed are our bonds to all life. Blessed are our bonds to the source of life itself. The theme of our service this morning is for Earth Day, which is actually tomorrow. This global event, celebrating our home planet Earth and raising awareness of the threats to it and what we humans can do to overcome them. And the theme for this year is Planet versus Plastic. Our opening words are an extract from the Jewish Declaration on Nature, which came from the meeting of the leaders of all the world faiths organised by the Worldwide Fund for Nature in Assisi back in 1986. And this is an extract of that wording. At the very beginning of time, humankind accepted responsibility before God for all creation. Humankind was commanded to behave towards the rest of creation with justice and compassion. Humanity always lives in tension between its power and the limit set by conscience. Some 20 centuries ago, a story was told of two men who were out on the water in a rowing boat. Suddenly, one of them started to saw through the wood under his feet. He maintained it was his right to do whatever he wished with the place that belonged to him. The other answered him that they were both in the rowing boat together. The hole that he was making would sink them both. We have a responsibility to life, to defend it everywhere, not only against our own faults, but also those of others. We are all passengers together in this same fragile and glorious world. Let us safeguard our rowing boat, and let us row together. It's time for our first hymn, number 128 in the Purple Book, Our World is One World, and the words should appear on the screen. And please stand if you're able. Thank you. Number 128. Let us turn to a time of prayer and reflection. We have two prayers today. The first is for others and for ourselves. Let us pause and hold in our thoughts and prayers those of our own church community and their loved ones, all in our city and all throughout the wider world, who may be experiencing illness and difficult, sad or worrying times, whatever the causes. We hold in our thoughts and prayers all whose lives have been lost or changed forever through violence due to political or social unrest, natural disasters, accidents, or plain misfortune. We think today, as ever, of the continuing conflicts in Ukraine and in Gaza, involving dangerous tensions between the so-called superpowers and the potential for further outbreaks of violence in the neighbouring countries. May those fleeing the conflict, the vulnerable, the young, the sick, the women and the elderly, find sanctuary and peace somewhere. And may the places to which they flee somehow find the strength and resources to provide what is needed. May those claiming to be the leaders of all the countries be blessed with compassion and wisdom to prevent further destruction. May good sense and a desire for peace prevail. Let us pray that the tensions within our own society may be resolved through dialogue and discussion, so that everyone, whatever their differences, may coexist peaceably. And let's pause just for a few moments in the quietness of our own thoughts to consider both the blessings and the trials of our own lives, and dedicate ourselves to sharing our blessings and to doing what we can to ease the trials of others. Amen. And a prayer by Dolores La Chapelle, a prayer of thanks. We give away our thanks to the earth, which gives us our home. We give away our thanks to the rivers and lakes, which give away their water. We give our thanks to the trees, which give away their fruit and nuts. We give away our thanks to the wind, which brings rain to water the plants. We give away our thanks to the sun, who gives away warmth and light. All beings on earth, the trees, the animals, the wind and the rivers, give away to one another, so all is in balance. And we give away our promise to begin to learn how to stay in balance with all the earth. Amen. As has become our custom, it's time for our story. And today our story takes the form of a video, and I hope you will enjoy.
This is the story of 3 plastic bottles, empty and discarded. Their journeys are about to diverge, with outcomes that impact nothing less than the fate of the planet. But they weren't always this way. To understand where these bottles end up, we must first explore their origins. The heroes of our story were conceived in this oil refinery. The plastic in their bodies was formed by chemically bonding oil and gas molecules together to make monomers. In turn, these monomers were bonded into long polymer chains to make plastic, in the form of millions of pellets. Those were melted at manufacturing plants and reformed in molds to create the resilient material that makes up the triplets' bodies. Machines filled the bottles with sweet, bubbly liquid, and they were then wrapped, shipped, bought, opened, consumed, and unceremoniously discarded. And now here they lie, poised at the edge of the unknown. Bottle 1, like hundreds of millions of tons of his plastic brethren, ends up in a landfill. This huge dump expands each day as more trash comes in and continues to take up space. As plastics sit there being compressed amongst layers of other junk, rainwater flows through the waste and absorbs the water-soluble compounds it contains, and some of those are highly toxic. Together, they create a harmful stew called leachate, which can move into groundwater, soil, and streams, poisoning ecosystems and harming wildlife. It can take Bottle 1 an agonizing 1,000 years to decompose. Bottle 2's journey is stranger, but unfortunately no happier. He floats on a trickle that reaches a stream that flows into a river, and a river that reaches the ocean. After months lost at sea, he's slowly drawn into a massive vortex where trash accumulates, a place known as the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. Here, the ocean's currents have trapped millions of pieces of plastic debris. This is one of 5 plastic-filled gyres in the world's seas, places where the pollutants turn the water into a cloudy plastic soup. Some animals, like seabirds, get entangled in the mess. They and others mistake the brightly colored plastic bits for food. Plastic makes them feel full when they're not, so they starve to death and pass the toxins from the plastic up the food chain. For example, it's eaten by lanternfish. The lanternfish are eaten by squid. The squid are eaten by tuna, and the tuna are eaten by us. And most plastics don't biodegrade, which means they're destined to break down into smaller and smaller pieces called microplastics, which might rotate in the sea eternally. But Bottle 3 is spared the cruel purgatories of his brothers. A truck brings him to a plant where he and his companions are squeezed flat and compressed into a block. Okay, this sounds pretty bad too, but hang in there. It gets better. The blocks are shredded into tiny pieces, which are washed and melted so they become the raw materials that can be used again. As if by magic, Bottle 3 is now ready to be reborn as something completely new. For this bit of plastic with such humble origins, suddenly, the sky is the limit.
Now come to a reading, and Marion is going to read us a piece from Positive News, which Chris and Kathy were kind enough to order for the Green Team. It comes about every quarter, and we're making good use of it today.
This is by Robin Everly, the online marketplace saving wonky beauty products from landfill. The beauty industry's eye-watering waste problem is enough to make your mascara run. But a new online marketplace is tackling the issue head-on by offering cosmetic seconds at bargain prices. Boop is aiming to do what the wonky fruit and veg ethos has done for food waste by repurposing some of the 90 million beauty products thrown away each year in the UK alone. That's the weight of 650 double-decker buses and equates to 4,500 tons of moisturizer, 1,000 tons of mascara, and 4 Olympic-sized swimming pools full of perfume. 1/10 of that waste occurs in brands' supply chains, and 6.2% of discarded beauty goods are down to overproduction. A huge number of beauty products are destroyed each year by manufacturers and retailers without ever hitting the market, confirmed Boop founder Yasmin Amir. Consumers and brands are becoming far more conscious of sustainability, and consumers don't really care if their products don't look perfect or has older packaging. Amir's background in law led to her working as legal counsel for L'Oreal. Being on the inside of the beauty industry means she has witnessed firsthand how red tape and business processes contribute to wide-scale waste. Throughout my career, she said, I would have people come to me asking what to do about products that had printing errors, slow-moving items which they didn't want to store, or obsolete items. These were products that were perfectly fine to use, said Amir. France has already banned the destruction of unsold cosmetics, and similar legislation is under consultation for the EU and the UK. Meanwhile, Boop's research indicates that 95% of people would happily buy stock deemed surplus or imperfect due to a labelling mishap, damage, or changing to branding. Its online range features mid to high-end brands with discounts of up to 70% on products that would otherwise be destined for landfill.
Thank you, Marion. I think it's a very salutary lesson there. Thank you. Lots to think about. And now for something completely different. Delphine is going to read a poem for us.
Yeah, I'm a poetry lover. So Sheila slipped this one to me and said, you can read this, can't you? So I said, yes, okay. So I went away and read it, and I will read it to you now and share it because I like it lots. It's about boats. I was a boat person at one time in my life. Not quite like that all the time, but a boat person nevertheless. And I love the imagery in this poem of the earth as that little ship floating through the universe. I raised a reservation, and the reservation is that it's of its time. It talks about God, pronouns he, his, and I am going to slightly adapt that in my reading, and I'm apologising in advance. And the skipper in this poem represents for me some kind of what's called animate intelligence, which is possibly another word for what drives the living force that underpins my sort of idea possibly of the universe and life. So let the poem speak otherwise. It's by John McConnell, who was the founder of Earth Day, so he knows what he's talking about. Not quite sure when that was. It's a long. Sheila will tell you. And it's called "Hoist the Sails." Voila! Hoist the sails. 4 billion years ago, our lonely Earth set sail on the cosmic seas, guided by an unseen hand. Guided by an unseen hand of nature, God, or chance. As life evolved through endless ecocycles, humans were born, destined to destroy or enrich the precious ship. And now their hands have seized the tiller, but their ears have not yet caught the captain's quiet command. The sails are down, the ship becalmed, its fragile life at stake. No longer do we ride the gentle swells of silent seas and breathe the fragrant air. Broken are the rhythms of our cyclic plants and other living things. But now our captain speaks again. Our quiet thoughts at last reveal their voice. Hoist the sails, earth folk. Set them for celestial winds. Hold the tiller firm. The course ahead is clear. Be that nature, chance, or God or chance, that voice is heard. And we shall heed the captain's quiet command.
Thank you, Delphine. Just a moment to reflect on both our readings. Maybe reflecting a bit on that second reading. Our second hymn is number 199 from the Purple Book, We've a God Creator. Number 199, or on the screen. It's time for some meditation and quiet reflection. And I'm going to offer you the words by Mario Cleary called Our Best Expectations. And after that, we will have a little silence and then some reflective music. Knowing that we do not always live up to our best expectation of ourselves, let us in quietness seek the good within, which some call the inner light and some a spark of the divine. Knowing that we live in a society that falls far short of the ideal, let us in quietness resolve to do one thing this week to aid those suffering from want and injustice. Knowing that the earth is our home and that humankind is making it a dirty and even poisonous home, let us in quietness consider how we might be part of making it more healthful for all living things. Knowing that each one of us has some worry or sorrow hidden within, let us consider in quietness how we may reach out to one another with our smiles, our hand clasps, and our encouraging words. Today, over 65,000 people from over 150 nations are running in the London Marathon. Next week, it will be the turn of Plymouthians to run in what is now known as Britain's Ocean City Running Festival. Both events, I'm sure, are grueling tests of athleticism, stamina, and most importantly, determination and perseverance for when the going gets tough. I think sometimes the ability to take disappointment if one can't finish the course. Rather them than me. Tomorrow, sandwiched in between the bigger event in London and our home city run next weekend, is Earth Day. It's a global event involving an estimated 1 billion people from nearly 200 nations. You may wonder what on earth she's talking about. What connection is there between running a marathon and taking part in an Earth Day event? I can see several. The great majority of the marathon runners, whether it's in London or in Plymouth next week, are not top-class athletes. They're ordinary people who will have trained hard to develop stamina. They also need to have determination and strength of character, perseverance, otherwise known as stubbornness or mindedness. Most people taking part on Earth Day most likely aren't top-class athletes either. They're environmentalists, people with a keen interest in the health of our home planet and a determination to do their bit to improve things. Perseverance, strength of character, stubbornness, whatever you call it, I think is an essential quality too. And Charles Secret, a former director of Friends of the Earth, once said to me that so is patience. But I'm not sure whether now is the time to be patient any longer. Well, what about Earth Day? The first Earth Day took place in the United States in the spring of 1970, so 54 years ago. 11 years before the first London Marathon. Earth Day went global in 1990 and has taken place every year since, although I think during the pandemic it wasn't such an organised event. Each year it has a theme, and this year's is Planet versus Plastic. How did Earth Day come about? In 1950s and 60s America, the population and the economy boomed following the Second World War. For the first time, many Americans could afford items of which their parents could only have dreamt. They could afford to buy their homes or rent better quality ones, filling them with what soon became regarded as essentials: central heating, fridges, electrical goods of all sorts, luxurious furnishings and fashionable clothes. For many, owning a car was also essential. The cars in those days were huge and inefficient. They consumed vast amounts of leaded petrol, what the Americans call gas. And these gave out toxic emissions, and together with the smoke and the sludge from the many factories, polluted the air, the land, and the rivers, which flowed out to the sea. But most Americans, happy in their new materialistic luxuries, were oblivious to the environmental concerns, unaware of how a polluted environment threatens human health and that of all living creatures. Where did it go wrong? Did people believe in the biblical instruction, as in Genesis, where it says, "And God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth and subdue it and have dominion over the fish of the sea and over the birds of the heavens and over every living thing that moves on earth." Talk about mistaken translation. And it couldn't go on forever. Rachel Carson's book, Silent Spring, came out in 1962. Her book raised public awareness and concerns for all living organisms, for the environment, and the links between pollution and public health. It became a bestseller. Over 500,000 copies were sold in over 20 countries, which was a lot in those days. It was a watershed moment, and I can remember there was a copy of it in our school library, and I still wonder which inspired member of staff requested it. It was very difficult to get hold of. It flew off the shelves. A journalist and peace activist, John McConnell, whose poem Delphine read for us earlier, was also passionate about our planet's well-being. Since the early 1960s, he'd had a vision of a day to bring people together to celebrate the earth and promote responsible stewardship rather than dominion, which had led to such damage over the centuries. He introduced the idea of a global holiday called Earth Day at the 1969 UNESCO Conference on the Environment. And he suggested holding it around about the spring equinox on about March the 20th or 21st, because it was spring, the beginning, a new beginning. Events rather overtook all this, because in January and February 1969, there was a huge oil spill from Santa Barbara, from a rig which was off the coast of this Californian town. It was the largest at the time, and it killed many sea mammals, the dolphins and the seals and the sea lions, as well as thousands of seabirds. The public was outraged, and even President Nixon visited the area, and from that came new laws. Senator Gaylord Nelson was a man already concerned about the state of the environment, and he wanted to channel the energy of the anti-Vietnam War protesters. He wanted to channel it into addressing this new concern about the environment. He shared McConnell's visions of a special day. He was going to have it as some kind of environmental teaching, and he preferred late April because it avoided the college exams and religious holidays like Easter and Passover, and also was likely to be better weather. It was also near the anniversary of the birth of the noted conservationist John Muir. And so the first Earth Day was held on Wednesday, April the 22nd, 1970. 20 million Americans, that's 1 in 10 of the population, inspired by McConnell and led by Senator Nelson and others, came together for rallies and clean-up efforts and various environmental activities, all peaceful, all working together. Such an impressive response to the first Earth Day showed that people felt a strong emotional and spiritual connection with the environment, going beyond merely its physical aspects. Those of you who know me know that I have a special interest in what's up there, in astronomy. And I'm sure that these feelings were also inspired by the experience shared by the Apollo 8 astronauts. I can remember on Christmas Eve 1968, the Apollo 8 astronauts, Frank Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders, became the first humans to witness the Earth rising above the moon's barren surface. The photos they hurriedly took, thankfully some in colour, are now so famous as the Earthrise photos. Who cannot be but deeply moved by this vision of our home planet, this beautiful, vulnerable, fragile blue and white globe, this ship in a dark ocean? Who cannot fail to be moved by it and to realise that this is all that we have? Well, the Americans were inspired to continue to celebrate Earth Day every year, and it led up to the setting of their Environment Agency and the passing of several laws to protect various aspects of the environment in the States. In 1990, Earth Day became a global event. Each year there is a theme reflecting a current major concern to inspire everyone around the world to take actions to prevent further damage, to redo, remake, compensate for what we've done. And this year, as I've mentioned, it's plastic versus the planet. And we've all seen for ourselves, and in images on the TV and other media, of the enormous amounts of discarded plastic littering our towns and cities, our countryside, our rivers and seas. Tons, literally, of the stuff. And you will have gathered from the piece that Marion wrote, it is literally tons. And also like the bottles in our video story. It's far more than unsightly, bad enough though that is. It's destroying habitats, posing risks to our wildlife, and by contaminating the food chain, ultimately, to ourselves. But don't despair, because an historic UN treaty on plastics is being drawn up to reduce the waste around the world. Nearly 200 countries have agreed to start negotiating on an international agreement to take action on this crisis. And it's hoped this will be agreed by the end of this year. Its supporters describe it as one of the world's most ambitious environmental actions since the 1989 Montreal Protocol, which phased out the ozone-depleting substances. And there is evidence that the damage to the ozone is reducing now that that has been done. And the organisers of Earth Day are calling for at least a 60% reduction in the production of all plastics by 2040, which isn't so long away. So what can we do to help? We heard in Marion's reading that dealing with even such specific items can have a significant effect. How many double-decker buses full was it? 650 double-decker buses worth. Good grief. Thank you. So we can all do something. There's some simple ideas. We can shop sustainably. So the next time you're out shopping, you can carry a reusable bag with you. I always do. I have a couple stuck in my pocket. You can buy local products and things which aren't enveloped in plastic. Well, you can try. You could try becoming what they call a zero waste champion. Invest in sustainable ocean-friendly products like reusable coffee mugs. And I can see Jill smiling at the remembrance of me insisting on her buying one on Exeter Station at great expense. Do you still have it?
Yes, I've received it. Yeah.
Great, she still has it. You see, it works. You can try bamboo toothbrushes and shampoo bars. And somebody kind of gave me a shampoo bar for Christmas, and it's great. You don't have to fiddle about with a plastic bottle. You just rub it on your hair and go. You could travel sustainably. So when you're on holiday, take your own reusable drinking bottles. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Or pick a sunscreen which doesn't have microplastics in it. You could press for change. Ask your local supermarket or restaurant to ditch the plastic packaging and refuse the plastic cutlery and straws, and tell them why. And now is an ideal time as they're going round knocking on people's doors, canvassing for the local elections on May the 2nd. Ask the next candidate what they're going to do about the plastic problem. That'll keep them thinking. Can dress sustainably. I think most of us here probably do, actually. It's shocking the fashion industry produces 1/5 of all the global wastewater and 1/10 of the global carbon emissions. That is more than all the international flights and maritime shipping combined, just for clothes, which some, sadly, of the younger generation will discard after a couple of wearings. Consider vintage shops. I do. And repairing your clothes when possible. You can choose plastic-free personal care products, things like toothpastes and face wash, and I've been nagged to try tooth powder, which doesn't come in a plastic tube. I will do it. Well, this seems like a great long list, but don't be discouraged. Do what you can, bit by bit. When it comes to environmental matters, none of us can do it all. We all have our strengths and weaknesses, things we find hard to change, but we can all do something. We can't be perfect. None of us are perfect. And as Winston Churchill once said, perfection is the enemy of progress. Because if you're too fussy, you never get anything done. So we can still make progress, maybe by changing just one thing at a time, but over time it all adds up. Even one less piece of plastic let loose means one less piece finding its way down the drain into the sewers and into the sea, so potentially saving at least one life. And if we all do that every day, many lives will be saved. In closing, let's remember it's not about having dominion over our fellow creatures, but about being good stewards to protect and hopefully improve on what we pass on to future generations. The topic of the keynote speech at GA was being a good ancestor, which means you consider the future generations and act in a way which you think will be helpful. So let's all be good ancestors. And I feel the following quote is a good one with which to leave you. In a preface to her book, Cherishing the Earth, Nourishing the Spirit, the Unitarian minister, the Reverend Dr. Maria Curtis, writes, "We are apparently 3/4 of the way through the window of habitability on the Earth. Don't worry, in about 1.5 billion years, life on Earth will no longer be possible. But meanwhile, we still have more living to do. Why end it all prematurely? Let's continue to occupy our place in space and time, not as plunderers and exploiters, but with gratitude and humility, aware of our interconnectedness and interdependency with the Earth, her land, her rivers and oceans, her air, and her creatures. Let us preserve the natural world as the primary revelation of the divine. It is our duty as conscious beings to use our gifts wisely and responsibly. Let us be worthy of the 13.8 billion years that brought us into being. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. Amen." Time for our final hymn, number 216, Wide Green World, We Know and Love You. For our closing words, I'd like to leave you with this thought from the Unitarian book Fragments of Holiness, which has quotations from many well-known thinkers, poets, writers, and activists, one for each day of the year. And the quotation for April the 22nd, Earth Day, is by Fyodor Dostoevsky, who urges us, love all of God's creation, both the whole and every grain of sand in it. Love every leaf, every ray of light. Love the animals, love the plants, love every kind of thing. If you love each fragment, then everywhere God's mystery will reveal itself to you. Once you perceive it, you will begin to understand it ever more deeply with each passing day. And finally, you will be able to love the whole world with an all-embracing, universal love. And from that love, we can each find the strength and will to do what we need to. Amen.